Hello, everyone. How are you doing? This is Daryl Guberman, CEO of Guberman PMC LLC, a quality consulting firm here in Connecticut. We've been open going on almost 13 years as of August 2024. We have, as I said, 40 plus years in quality, manufacturing, aerospace, medical implants, medical materials, printing, and plastic distribution, where we dealt with every industry. We have some special guests here today that we've added to our wall. We have Mr. Walter James Jim McNerney, Jr. He was the president and CEO of Boeing between 2005 and 2015, and then he was the chairman of Boeing Company between 2005 until March 1st, 2016. If anyone is to be placed blame when it comes to the 737 MAX, it should fall under him. He was a number cruncher, I think from IBM, had no clue about aerospace. It was running Boeing like I have no idea. It wasn't being run like an airplane manufacturer, that's for sure. The problem is, and I've heard complaints throughout the industry, that Boeing was run by bean counters rather than by people who know about aerospace. What happened is when he retired, he was a part of the implementation of the Boeing 737 MAX under his leadership, not under Mr. David Calhoun, though he sat on the board of directors at the time in 2009. Boeing was made FAA regulator, listen to that, regulator, which meant that they didn't have to tell, okay? Under McNerney, James McNerney or Jim McNerney, the FAA came in and made Boeing an FAA regulator. Thus, when they did that and he stepped down, Mr. Muhlenberg took over, who was an engineer, who knew a little bit about aerospace, but he was handed a bowl of shit, okay? Because they were already an FAA regulator doing things underneath McNerney, I guess, whatever. Then you have Dennis Muhlenberg, who in 2019, under his reign, laid off about 900 inspectors, or they moved them around out of inspection, out of the critical items that could either make you or break you. As you see, when those two planes went down, Ethiopian Air and Malaysian Air, my heart goes out to the people there, the survivors, and the parents and the relatives and all that. But he got a $60,000 death benefit for 370 people getting killed. He lost his $14.9 million bonuses and all this other crap along with that. But he lost that, but he kept the $62,000 because they say it was a contractual deal. Once he stepped back and David Calhoun took over, now he became, just like he was, the FAA administrator for Boeing, since Boeing was the FAA. So when they talk about MCAS and all the rest of this mess, MCAS, they didn't have to go back to FAA in Washington. Don't let anybody bullshit you, okay? Because what happened is, as Boeing is an FAA regulator, they were like, it was a shootout over there as far as what they could do. Rather than having the CEO like Muhlenberg, like Mr. McNerney, or even David Calhoun, roll up their sleeves and go down on the floor and be a supreme cheerleader because they are an FAA regulator. Instead, they let it go, hey, you could sign off things, you could do this, you could do that, 50 rivets missing, bolts not properly torqued, wasn't in the QC sheets, maybe eliminated. It's disgusting. So this video today is how employee turnover fueled Boeing's quality control nightmare. How employee turnover fueled Boeing's quality control nightmare. And it wasn't turnover. They started layoffs in 1998 and kept them going back and forth, back and forth. 2019, as I said, they got rid of 900 inspectors, pushed them around to different facilities, but they eliminated their job, their MO for their job, that's for sure. We're going to go through this real quick because McNerney's here. We might as well get it all out in the open, shall we? You will see that under his reign, the FAA gave them supreme authority as an FAA regulator. Here we go. ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, is a private, not-for-profit, non-governmental corporation that has federal agencies and corporations on board. They are not affiliated to the government. Over here, I'm not going to go into all these details. You'll find it in the description. Randy Doherty, 2015, was the vice president of ANAB, chairman of the IAF. He was also the principal on the IAF tax form. The International Accreditation Forum in Delaware is a repository for both national and international accreditation bodies. Those accreditation bodies that sit on the IAF sit as a member are protected by ANSI-ANAB because they, ANSI-ANAB, are underwriters for those accreditation bodies. You don't make this up. At the time, he handed over leadership, Randy did, to Zhao Jinwu, a communist Chinese national who's been involved with our quality for since 1994. Very much so. He was also the chairman of the China National Intelligence Services, which is the accreditation body in China and Beijing. He's seen here in Wuhan, China, 2017. 2017, he was seen in Wuhan, China, issuing a laboratory accreditation where a Miss Pamela Sale, and we have her coming up, said that between one lab and another lab, there is no protocols. They're ad hoc and they're basically out of control. She confessed to the COVID virus being released from this facility, and we would keep on going. In fact, Randy wrote a very nice note saying we're so pleased that Zhao Jinwu, he was at our first meeting in 1994. Isn't that a tender moment? You also have the factor that you have 10 different organizations, registrars in China that can issue an ANSI-ANAB accredited certification. ANAB sits on ANSI's board, and they sat there between 2015 and 21 when Communist China, by the way, Zhao Jinwu was mandated by his country of origin, Communist China, to take your data through the China National Intelligence Law, Article number 7. In 2018, ANSI took over complete control over ANAB. Yes, they did. And they were also a member on the IAF at that time. In 2013, I gave a speech at the American Society for Quality where a Region 3 director, Mr. David Levy from the American Society for Quality, said that Mr. Guberman, ANAB has no problem with what you do. In fact, we support you in your endeavor of quality certification. And I guess he never pushed it up the ladder. So in 2016, Randy Doty then asked us to join either ANAB or IF or both, but how in good conscience could I join either ANAB or the IAF when they have these countries? Now, I understand through the grapevine that Iran got their certificate taken away, not because of poor quality, but because they lacked the payment. So I guess several months ago, they got their certificate of the IAF taken away. But still, the damage has been done. ANSI-ANAB sat right over, and they still sit over by Pakistan and Iran. Even though they're not really a member in good standing, they still sit there. And they are, again, ANSI-ANAB are underwriters for Iran and Pakistan and all other accreditation bodies on the IAF. You have Xi Jinping, who said Article number 7, National Intelligence Law, mandates espionage. You have the factor, here he is in the laboratory at Wuhan, China, Zhao Jinwu, standing there, and he was also at the time the chairman of the IAF, standing there in Wuhan. In May 2017, 17 through 19th, you had the second annual workshop between China and U.S. And the first order of business, as you can see, is gain of function research. When you have over in this country, Mr. Anthony Fauci getting inquisitioned by Ron Paul, I think he's of Kentucky, asking him, do you know, Mr. Fauci, Dr. Fauci, about gain of function? Fauci says, I don't know anything. What a liar. Then you have Pamela Sale under deposition. She's a vice president of ANAB, she's a vice president of ANSI-ANAB laboratory accreditation. Okay, and she states that one of the issues is that there's no commonly agreed upon set of standards that forensic labs around the country or phlebotomy labs or biolevel 4 labs have to follow. Instead, there are informal guidelines that labs can choose to follow or not. How they became an underwriter? Well, here it is on a federal contract right here. It basically states that ANSI-ANAB are underwriters for the IAF. And that's the contract number. And at the time in 2018, when the standard operating work order was issued by the State Department, they basically invited Communist China into the halls. And it's not hacking, it's giving our data away. Now we go with Boeing. Boeing, here it is, Boeing. Here's just a simple factor here. You have the factor that you have the underwriters, ANSI-ANAB. Okay, are underwriters for the IAF and ILAC, as I told, the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation in Australia. You have the factor moving over here where you have the International Accreditation Forum and the International Laboratory Accreditation Cooperation. You have their accreditation bodies, like ANSI, ANAB at the top. You have that, and you have UKAS and Accredia, and the gentleman there, Emmanuel Riva, took over the IAF from Zhao Jinwu. That's not really important at this present juncture. You also have Iran and Pakistan. Iran got their certificate taken away because of lack of payment. But ANSI and ANAB are surprising because they should really be over here as their underwriters, or actually they are over here as underwriters right here. They're underwriters. And you move over and you have the registrars right over here, the different registrars. And these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the 7 registrars. These are the 7 registrars that sit on ANSI ANAB, right over by the accreditation body ANAB that they use as their logo for some of their certifications. You also have the factor that you have Boeing over here as the certified organization. Boeing sits on ANSI's board. In 2002, Boeing sent out a supplier bulletin that said basically, if you send us your AS 9100 certificate, that's the aerospace certificate for the entire world, and if you send us that certificate, ANSI ANAB accredited, then just send us a certificate, send us your parts, and for 22 years, we don't have to come see you. Don't get me wrong, they probably sent out sample inspectors. That's it, just go in there, take a look around, see that they're not a garage with a dirt floor. But they didn't do a full-blown inspection of all their suppliers. They took a piece of paper as verification of their quality, which that is not it. It is not the piece of paper that makes the quality. It is the personnel, the management that makes the certification. You have the factor on their supplier portal. It still says this, ANSI, ASQ, National Accrediting Board, ANAB. By the way, when I was mentioning that about 2016, when I was invited either to join ANAB or the IAF or both, that I could not do that. I would not do that. I am a proud American. You got to be kidding me. To join the IAF or ANAB, and well, the ANSI and ANAB sat on the IAF, so you got it from both sides, and you risk the chance of getting your data taken because the chairman at the time, Zhao Jinwu, 2015 to 21, was mandated to take it. And then it says internationally equivalent, which you could discover could be Pakistan or Iran, as I've showed you. The next thing is, this is a good one. This is the actual document that stated that the FAA increases authority of Boeing's commercial airplane division to self-certify its own aircraft. The system allows Boeing employees to perform tasks on behalf of the FAA that include oversight of testing and product standards, along with certification of aircraft technologies and new aircraft designs. 2009, they were made a regulator. On top of it, they cut corners as a regulator, skipped quality processes, and I guess the FAA that day was in there and they fined them. They found this glaring issue. Most recently in Boeing Bell's V-22 composite facility, they found that Boeing is still keeping up with their old adages about fudging documentation from 2007 to 2018. Sitting on ANSI's board, you will have 7 different registrars that use ANAB accreditation. So is there any oversight? Absolutely not. You also have the Federal Aviation Administration sitting over by Boeing. So in essence, how can one regulator oversee another regulator, ladies and gentlemen? I ask you this question. Since the FAA made Boeing a regulator in 2009, it is impossible. When they put the MCAS system in, they didn't have to tell the FAA in Washington because they are FAA in Washington. And you have David Calhoun as the FAA administrator. When I go out there and I talk to people and they say that Boeing forces us to maintain an ANSI ANAB accreditation, we have to pay to play, we have to keep our balls in the air rather than the balls on the than the eye on the product. This is what I hear the resounding saying out there in aerospace certification. This is what they say to me. It's pay to play, Daryl. It is pay to play. My telephone number is 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS@yahoo.com. I thank you, and once again, how employee turnover fueled Boeing's quality control nightmare. It wasn't their turnover. It was the problem that upper management turned them over by layoffs and by moving them around and doing some really nasty things managerial. There was no managerial style there at all. cut back and get a bonus. Dennis Muhlenberg is the perfect example. Cut back 900 people, even though 2 jets went down, killing 370 people total. You've got problems there at Boeing. 203-556-1493 or Daryl, TQRS at yahoo.com.